俺の拳を試すか Come on!
This is gonna be a match to remember. Fight!
All right, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Slovenly Gamer Podcast. I am your host, Milton, and on this week's show, I have a very special guest with me, the creator of he's right up there. There's Brian Keene, there's Brian Killian, there's Brian Smith, there's Wrath James White, and a couple of other horror writers that I absolutely love. This guy has written one of the best series. And it's massive too. It's actually I think it's the biggest zombie post-apocalyptic series I've ever gotten my hands on. Ladies and gentlemen, the creator of the zombie Fallout series, Mark Tufo. Mark, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
Awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate that intro. That was very nice of you.
No, it's like, seriously, dude, like I have so many questions. I'm obsessed. I'm literally on like book 5 right now of the series.
I was worried that my name wasn't Brian. I wasn't going to be able to keep writing the Z-Pop thing.
No, like, yeah, I'm up to number 5, and like I got lost because I'm up to the piece where he's talking to like the folk, like the god deity.
Yep.
And then Eliza goes to the devil, and the devil's like basically salty and like laughing at her. Like I literally stopped at that part where he was like laughing at her, and he was like, "Oh, so you think I'm gonna help you?" It's just like, I have nothing to do with this. Like, I'm winning. Like, the more people you kill, the more souls I get. I don't give a shit. Like, good luck with that. and like that was like that's where and that's in book 5, right? If you can remember, I'm not going crazy, am I?
I think you're right. I'll be honest. Most readers I've read this story so many times, and more so than myself, that they'll start quoting things, and I'll literally be like, "I wrote that," you know. So
right.
You are probably right.
That sounds about right. Now, before we get started in our conversation, generally before we start, we have, especially when I have new guests on the show, I always like to start off with the first question, just so that they can kind of introduce themselves to the listeners. So my first question is, who is Mark Tufo?
That's one of those loaded questions, right? Where do you go with this one? I'm a storyteller. I consider myself a regular, average guy. I was blue collar most of my life. I did time in the military, and then I was trying to,
Yeah,
better.
I saw that. Like my brother, a Marine, right?
Yep.
Yeah. My older brother's a Marine, man. Life.
Nice. Hoorah! Tell him thank you for his service.
Yeah, he's all about that stuff. I actually told him, I was like, "Hey, man, I'm interviewing a Marine today." Like, and I said ex-Marine. He was just like, "Nah, he's a Marine." He's like, "Once a devil dog, always a devil dog, baby."
Yeah, we're called former Marines, never ex-Marines.
Yeah. Yes.
So I was doing blue collar, and just doing my thing, and then I got a family. I wanted to provide a little more for them, so I went back to school, and I was just trying to, the grass is always greener on the other side. So I was chasing that white collar job, and they were good jobs and they were good paying jobs, but just white collar jobs just kept getting friggin' laid off. It was brutal.
Yeah,
and it was tough staying up there. So while I'm laid off and going insane and stressed out, I was reading tons, because that was the only thing, while you're sitting there at 3 a.m, can't sleep,
exactly.
You might as well read.
Stressing out, yeah.
Right. It's horrible. It's a horrible feeling when you're trying to provide and you can't do it. And so,
yeah, man.
So I read, I was reading a lot of Z-Poc back then. And I had just finished this book. I won't name authors, but I came downstairs after a night of not sleeping, and I told my wife, like, I read. I swear to God, I was just joking, but I was like, I read this book, and I think I could do better, And maybe she hadn't woke up, or maybe she's just sick of me being around all the time. She's like, well, why don't you write one better? And I was like, oh, okay, well, all right. And then that was that was it. I sat down and I kind of penned out what I was going to do. And, that first book was born. The first zombie book was born. I had already written one sci-fi book way back when. But
Wow.
that's about it in a nutshell. I blue collar to the service to white collar to I guess I considered no collar now. But
yeah, I mean, so this is like the perfect kind of like setup because I had that question later down in the list of questions, but this is perfect. So, what were some of your earlier works? Was it always horror, and like what were they like? Were they Z-Pop? Like were they strictly kind of like more like drama horror? Like what genre and what style were they?
Well, when I always loved to read, and even when I was a little kid, my mom was always taking me to the library. I just enjoyed the hell out of it. I was a little kid; it was all with dinosaurs and history and all normal stuff little kids enjoy.
Right.
And then I remember I got a hold of I think it was It. I think I was 10 years old, and I read It. And my mind, like those commercials where the head just blows off the top.
Yeah.
That was my head at 10 years old, and that was like, boom, I'm horror. I love it. I'm fascinated. I love that being petrified feeling while I'm holding a book. So that was my first love of horror.
That's a pretty awesome introduction. So your first introduction is the classic.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Stephen King. I mean, that was probably. I still love him. I'm certainly not, but that was probably his wheelhouse of his greatest huge books, and we were just devouring them as a family. My brothers and my dad. We would just, we get passed them around when we got the books at the house. So it was awesome. And I also have my older brother was huge sci-fi fan, so like Isaac Asimov was always around. And I remember reading Isaac Asimov, and again, what little of my head that wasn't blown off erupted as well. And so actually, my first book that I wrote, well, that 2/3 of it that I wrote was way back in college, and it actually it was all handwritten out on college ruled paper, and it actually sat in my garage for 15, 20 years, 2/3 of it, and I just never finished it because most kids don't finish what they start, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I dragged that out of a box in the closet, in the garage, and it was funny because I started reading, and I was like, wow, this ain't half bad, and then I didn't realize I hadn't finished it, so I finished reading my little papers, and I was like, well, how the hell does this thing end? So I literally wrote the book for me because I never thought anyone was going to buy it because I wanted to see how it was going to turn out. So that's technically my first book, is The Indian Hill.
Wow. So did you ever go back and publish that, or is that something like you're saying is just something that no one would probably ever see?
Well, actually, Indian Hill, after I finished it, it was, I tried to edit it. Huge mistake. I know I'll try to answer you. You were asking questions about what people that want to write do. If you're going to write a book, do not self-edit. That is going to be the first huge piece of information I'm going to give you.
Okay.
So yeah, I tried to self-edit because first off, we couldn't afford to get an editor. We were freaking broke.
Right.
But I cleaned it up as best I could. We shopped it around to, if we could find an address in New York, we sent it to them. And so I've got a stack of rejection letters, a ream high. So we just, we got a stock image off of somewhere, I don't know. And we slapped it up on Amazon. This was kind of like when putting up your own book was way back when.
Yeah.
And, we put it up there, and we again never thought it was going to sell it, and it didn't back then. But it was just cool to say I have a book on Amazon. It was just kind of cool. And then and then I got laid off again and started writing the Zombie Fallout series, and that started gaining a little bit of traction. So we actually went back and got an editor, cleaned up Indian Hill, got it edited, got it a nice cover and all that fun stuff. And I'm actually right now writing the 6th book in the Indian Hill series. So
really? See,
yep.
My mind is blown right now. And the reason why, I honestly didn't know, and this is like perfect information to find out, because how I came across you, I stumbled across you on Amazon. I was just looking for some zombie stuff. And I think you came up under Keen years ago. And off and on, you know, and like, you know, I got the audiobook because you know what? And then it was like the perfect timing because I wanted to try to listen to some horror stuff. And I think I was still living in New York at the time too. So, you know, being on the train, I was just like, you know what? And sometimes it's like hell trying to read on a train in New York. You get so packed that you can't even like read your book comfortably. So it's just absolutely terrible. So that's basically how I got it. So I always just thought like, this is like this guy just like did this one thing and he did an amazing job and this is like the best thing. So now I'm super excited because now I have other horror novels to go look at because I'm in that place right now that generally what I'm reading is like graphic novels, comics, and a lot of horror novels right now.
Yeah, no, keep going. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, no, it's okay. What I was gonna say was that like that's what's piquing my interest now because it's just like for a long time I kind of fell out of love with the genre because of especially on film and what I see. You know, it was just like remake after remake. Everybody's doing the same thing, the same tropes, and it just got really tiring. And when I came across the Zombie Fallout, it was so good and so different, and even the characters were different. It was just phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a conscious decision on my part to not, have the Rambo guy that with the huge giant Ford F-1250 or something.
Yeah.
And he has bazookas in his basement, and I was trying to steer away from that. It's funny when I first started laying out the Zombie Fallout, it was almost going to be a straight comedy. I was actually I was gonna name it Zombie Follies.
Really?
Yeah, and then people started dying in my books, and I was like, well, that's not that funny. So maybe we'll go more. I'll tread a line. There'll be dark and there'll be humor. And there'll be dark humor along with it.
I mean, and it's definitely those aspects in the book. So okay, but fundamentally. Were all the characters there? Eliza, her brother, Talbot, like the family. Were all those things there, or did those things also change as you changed it from more of
that's everything is an evolution there. It was all organic. Zombie Fallout was literally in my head one book, a one and done. It was just going to be the Talbot family. I've said it a bazillion times. Tommy was going to die on that Walmart roof.
Really?
Yeah, Eliza was never part of the equation. That all changed. BT was never really going to be in it. He was just kind of a passing character. Mrs. Deneau, a lot of the big characters in the series now were never part of the original design.
Let me just say this about Mrs. Deneau. And I want all my female, listeners to understand, everybody understand something. This is what I'm about to say. Like, you have to understand that this character is literally this. That bitch. Every time I'm like, you wrote like the perfect, like her, and I forgot the dude who switches sides. The human who teams up with Eliza, and Talbot's like always on his ass.
Yeah, Durgan.
Oh my gosh, those two characters. Like that's how good those characters are. That I hate them.
And I thank you. That makes me feel like I've done something right. I mean, it is fun to write Deneau because of who she is and the salty acid tongue that she has and the things that she does. And and in the first book she was just kind of a pain in the ass that like said rude things, but now it's like, holy crap, so it's fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to write her. Okay, so at the genesis of this, you said earlier, I just need to go back and touch on this. You're in, there's like what, 7 or 8 books for the Fallout series? 9.5 at the moment.
9.5, right? Because I can't remember how many, but I know I have maybe 7 of the audiobooks because I just listen to them all the time, and then my wife's complaining. She's like, "Well, are you listening to that story again?" I was like, "Why are you listening to that?" I'm like, "It's so awesome. It's so good." But okay, so talk us through the progression of the story because this is very interesting for something in your mind to just at the genesis just be a one and done, and then it not only a one and done, but a completely different style, completely different genre, completely different feel, and evolve into 9.5 books, great 9.5 books, and a completely different feel. Like, how did that happen? Like, if you can remember, kind of like walk us back through that.
Well, I can definitely give you the start of it. I do love the zombie genre. And I actually, when you're reading that first chapter, and Talbot runs down the stairs, and his wife's like, "What's going on?" and all that. That was always an exercise that was playing out in my head. Like, what would I do if the zombie apocalypse started? So I had chapter 1 in my head, and then I just sat down and just started banging away, and we call it pantsing. I know some authors that have a huge whiteboard, and their room looks like the CSI with the strings going, and this guy goes there, and this person does that, and in chapter 38 he's going to be there. I don't have any of that, and I just I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and I let the characters kind of dictate where the story's going to go. And that's really been the case for the entire series. I mean, because Zombie Fallout 10, which is now written and is it in beta right now? I think it's in beta. But so, I mean, and that's literally what I've done for this whole series. And I've said it before that, as long as it's fun to write and I'm having a good time, then I'll keep going.
That's absolutely
and as long as you're having a good time, I'll keep going.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And a couple things in terms of like character. Talbot, and you said like everybody changed. So originally you said that these characters, the story wasn't there, and it kind of like changed naturally as you decided to kind of go a different route, correct?
Yes.
So tell me about creating these characters, and not even necessarily creating them, because what I'm getting from you is that like these characters kind of like just come to you to kind of create themselves through the actual writing process, through the creative process. So were there different stages of each character that you kind of changed as things went along before you got to the final cut? So like, how different was Talbot in like the alpha stages? How different was Eliza? How different was BT? Like all these Durgan.
The original core Talbots, because I based them loosely on my own family, are pretty consistent throughout. They are who they are.
Okay.
But like BT was I'll try not to do too many side thoughts here, but I had a development deal with a media company, not the one I'm present with, but another one a couple years back, and they had only read the first Zombie Fallout, and they had come to me and they're like, "Okay, we're working on putting this story together, and so we're going to get rid of this BT character." And I was like, I'm sitting there on the other end of the line going, "You fucking kid me." Can I swear on the show? I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, please. No, go ahead. Right on.
Yeah, like a sailor. And so they were like, we're going to cut this BT character.
Like, we're both from the East Coast, so trust me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. And so I was like, well, obviously they've only read the first book. I mean, but that shows you the genesis. Like BT, if you really look at it, was not a big part of book 1, and he really didn't come into being into book 2, and I had no idea the bond him and Talbot. I'll try not to give too many spoilers. We're going to create. So, and then, if you look at book 1 with Eliza, she wasn't even in it really, So
yeah.
And Tommy wasn't gonna live, so he's a whole arc. But so she's most of the characters. Deneau was just like we talked about earlier, was just a little kind of rude lady who now is, the evil incarnate.
Oh my gosh. Ugh.
So I almost probably everyone except for the initial Talbot clan has definitely evolved to a great deal to kind of flow with the story.
I mean, and this is in terms of like, because of the culture that we live in, how do you find it writing for the female characters, and how do you find it like creating a character like BT? And to me, it's always a testament to someone who's doing an excellent job at writing and creating a character, being a black man, being a person of color, and reading BT, I don't get any ounce of stereotype. I just get as like this is like a character who's probably like from the South or something, and it's like this is like a real dude, like. And I want to audibly, you know, and tell you like how awesome that is, just as a reader of color, like seeing this character, and it's just like he's just a really good character. And then like seeing the relationship between him and Talbot and the quips, and you know, and then like even though he's you can tell he's soft in his speech because of his size, and he's always had like a thing about being like, you know, massive. Even when the kids saw him at when they were standing to the lady, and she's like, Jesus Christ, look, you know, you see the size of this guy, and everyone. So you can tell more so the way that he approaches people and the way that he deals with people is with this functioning knowledge of like, people are always going to be intimidated by me because I'm a massive dude, you know? And I love that. And I love that you see all of those complexities in his character. And I just think like, I mean, just an awesome job. Like I love his wife and how his wife is always like, you know, on his ass, and like, you know, she knows him very well. I just, and that's what I like about like, and that's why I say it's like works like yours and Keen and Killian and different works. It's just like, all the characters are so well written and well like thought out that I always wonder like in that process, were those things that you were conscious of, or were you just literally creating this character and you weren't like oh yeah, because he's a big black dude, I shouldn't write like this or shouldn't write like that, or because this is a woman I shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that, or were those occurrences just as natural as well, to along with this, as more of the story progressed and the characters in the world progressed, those characters and their character kind of progressed as well?
You know, I've said it. If you can't care about the characters, you're not going to care about the stories. You know, I mean, that is the story, really, is the characters. Right. I mean, I've read books and I've watched movies where, you know, you just don't care. You're almost kind of like, just shoot them, man. You know, be done with it. I don't care whether they live or die.
Fear the Walking Dead.
I wasn't going to bring it up, brother.
Yeah, that's how I feel about everybody on there. Just kill them all. Like,
you know, I've been around a lot. I've been in trouble, not been in trouble. I've been in the service. I've been around people of every color, and honest to God, I have no problem with anybody that, if they don't have a problem with me, I don't have a problem with them. And I genuinely enjoy people. So I think I take those experiences from the people I've met, and, you know, and then that gets projected onto the page, you know. Right. So I certainly don't want to be, you know, racist or be considered not liking women. I do misogynistic. I always mess that word up, so I try to avoid
misogynistic.
But, you know, and I don't. Yeah, thanks, man. I don't want to be accused of those things because I am not, you know. So, and so that you can see that and you appreciate the character means a lot, you know.
Yeah, like and it's a very key thing to me with like the development, because it's like there's no character. It's like, and I'm sure there's going to be tons of characters, and even when BT's like messing with Durgan, like calling him like a redneck and all this kind of stuff like that, and the issues back and forth with him and Durgan, I love that it feels real. It doesn't feel forced. It just feels like this is this character, and from how you do a good job of like, which a lot of writers don't do, unfortunately, of building out a character that you're giving them personality. So each of these characters have a particular and distinct personality. So as the story progresses and certain behaviors and certain things occur and they say certain things, nothing ever essentially comes as a surprise to you. Because
I mean,
you've done such a great job of building out that character. You're like, oh yeah, of course he's going to be a dick and he's going to say something.
Yeah,
like
I mean, I try to stay into the parameters of the character I built, so you're not like, oh well, he wouldn't do that. She wouldn't say that. You know,
right,
and,
right.
And you know, when I'm writing dialogue or there's a scene, you know, I'd want to stick with what he or she would do or would not do, you know, and not, you know, like we all know, like Deneau's not going to jump in front of a bullet, you know,
Nope.
that's not going to happen, you know, and you know, and I try to, I guess, be a little bit of each character as I'm penning them, you know, so I know who they are, and go from there.
That's interesting. So you're kind of filtering all the characters through yourself a little bit to get a better sense. That's a really
I'm almost like
interesting.
playing a movie
Okay.
in my head as I'm writing, and I can see where they're at, what they're doing, and then I just kind of take that and put it onto the page.
All right. So, I mean, this world is massive. The universe is massive. Like, it's just great so far. Can you give us a little bit of hint of like where the story's heading, especially just for me, probably personally, just because I'm up to like book 5 right now? Like,
well, you're halfway there, brother.
can you hint maybe at a little bit, some surprises, maybe some new characters?
I'm trying to. Oh my gosh, yeah, you are heading right for the rails for a huge character.
Really? Ooh.
I think book 6. I don't want to give any spoilers away. There's some events in book 5 that are about to transpire, and then that lead right into book 6 and a new character that I think you might enjoy.
I already know that he met Azrael.
Yep, her as well.
Azil, yeah, because it's Eliza backwards, yeah.
I actually have so apparently you only know about the zombie Fallout series. Is that a safe statement? Okay,
yes.
So I have, I'll give you this one. I have a series called Lycan Fallout, which actually takes place 150 years in the future from the end of the zombie Fallout.
What?
Yes. Third book just came out last week, I think, in that series. So some things happen. I can't tell you, man, because I hate to tell you.
Don't tell me
how these things happen.
Don't tell me. That's perfect because I've been looking. So like I just recently picked up oh my gosh, I can't even remember the name of the book, but Brian Keene's latest book. Yep. And I've been looking for a couple new novels to kind of check out. And I went on your website, and you know what? I stand corrected. I do remember, if I'm not going crazy, seeing like in Fallout or something like that.
Yeah.
Either on the site or on Amazon or something. And I was like, oh, he actually has more books because I was so obsessed and enthralled in the world of the zombie Fallout series. It didn't even really occur to me until I was just like, I'm gonna have him on a show. Let me do a research. So I was like, maybe let me see if he's done other stuff. I was like, of course he has. And then when I saw the other books, I was like, of course he has. Look at me. I'm like over here, so like starving, and I felt so bad because I was like, he's gonna be on the show, and he's like, so did you read them? I was like, no, man. It's like I didn't even realize.
I would never do that. I would just appreciate being on. But yeah, I got 24 books, believe it or not.
Oh, dude. Yes. Okay. So I know exactly what I'm going to be doing right after this. Going
I'll be on
and
next week, and I expect you to have get caught up.
Yeah, yeah, right. It's just like, so tell me, did you like that first chapter and Lycan Fallout? It's like, listen, man, let's talk about some Eliza. Now, where did the inspiration come for that character in particular?
That's funny.
She's a doozy.
Yeah, I'm not going to give that too much away, but she was in book 1 as that zombie girl in the field that they share that kiss. If you remember that scene. Yes. So that was her. And it was actually my oldest brother kind of threw that, hey, you should make her this. And I was like, no way. What are you, crazy? Who wants that in a zombie novel, Mm-hmm. And so, but then I was like thinking about it, like, screw it. And so I rolled with it, and it kind of fit in the lore, and we worked it in. I worked it in, and I think it kind of fit. It
really does fit. So you basically built up the following story around her character in terms of the background on her, everything connected.
Unfortunately, I didn't have that CSI string going. Eliza does this, and then what the hell was I gonna say? But it was funny. I got a lot of flack from zombie purists, like, oh, I'm not reading this crap because of this, and it's like, well, but a lot of people liked the twist. There are folks that like their zombie apocalypse like they like their zombie apocalypses. They want the guy in the Ford F-1250,
Right.
with the flamethrowers coming off the tailpipes, and and that's fine. And there are great books with that in it. That's just not what you're going to get here.
And spoilers ahead, folks. If you don't, minus spoilers, nothing too crazy. I always like give a warning on the podcast. People know, like, as a matter of fact, these books are out now. Go get it. Like, if you really want to know about the story, stop, pause, press pause. Go to marktufo.com. Get them, read them. When you're done, come back and listen to the rest of the show.
Yes.
Now, my thing here is that I would agree and disagree with the people who say those things, because I am somewhat of a purist. However, I respect and I enjoy when someone is trying to do something different, especially when they succeed. It makes it enjoyable. Example, when Keane did what he did with The Rising.
Yep.
And City of the Dead. It was so great that you really can't complain. So I feel like it's that same thing, even though it's you can say that it's going around, maybe down like a similar path. Like, it's so well done that you can't really, like, to me, there's nothing negative to say about it because it's well done. It's not like you didn't throw it in here as like some random thing or like a jump scare. It's like it's an integral part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people like I read the first book, I enjoyed it, but that was it. I couldn't go on to the second because this was going on, and I get it. That's your
Right.
call. I mean, it's your money to do with as you please. But I definitely greatly appreciate the folks that gave it a stab and kept on moving.
But you know what I find interesting though? Like, the zombie essentially has its genesis in spirituality. So I find it very strange that when that element begins to come into zombie, into contemporary zombie lore again, that people kind of frowned on it. Because if you look at the old Hammer films, like, it was like a spiritual element, like someone stole your soul, and that's why you would become a zombie and all these different things like that. It's only in the later times that they kind of changed that and it made it more kind of sterile. It was like, science experiments gone bad, that kind of thing, or but like, but I always felt, because like, you can probably tell from that I'm a massive zombie geek. But like, if you look at the zombie lore for what it actually is and what it is, even from its inception, it always had those spiritual underpinnings, whether you liked it or not. So I just find it, like, I'm not, of course everyone like what you like, but I just find it interesting that people like, oh, I don't like it because it went this particular direction. But I'm like, no, but that's always been part of the zombie lore.
And there's critics for every aspect. I mean, some,
right.
I didn't realize just how much spirituality I brought into my books until it got pointed out. I grew up Catholic, and I did not realize how much of that I still held in me, because some of that, there's I'm not reading passages in the novels, but some of that, Catholicism books at some points, just at least Talbot's view of the world and things like that. His morals, his right and wrong.
You definitely, again, you see it, and I think you've done such an excellent job of writing that out and painting that image for us, that to me, when it happened, instead of my reaction being like, at first it was like, huh, and then when I kind of saw where you were going with it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be some global shit. It's like, if it's that means it's gonna be like some super. To me, it makes the issue a whole lot harder and more difficult to solve. And I like that. And I think that now they have to think kind of outside of the box, because I feel like with science, you can just be like, well, you got to find a dude, you can make a cure, and this and that. And I love that there's like a whole nother plane to it. And I love that you even set it up where, like, when you kind of like explained how and what you can do when you kind of did the flashback to the Native Americans, and like, when she was like, fighting with like the holy man and things like that, and the kind of things that they did to kind of like fight against her. And I was just like, this is so awesome. Like, it's just not thrown at you. And I feel like, yeah, guys, if you're listening to this, if you're one of those people, you got to give it a chance. Trust me.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope give it a shot.
It's absolutely great. And like, I love the fact like the whole conversation with him and God was like the best thing. Like he's just like,
I have fun.
and God is like, I can't believe that. He's like, I love the fact that like you get the sense that God is like, I can't believe that I made you. Like, you're such an asshole. Like, did I really make this?
I mean, I hope my God is like that one. That would be great to go up there and shoot the shit.
Yeah, right. He's like, what? How do you want me to look? Like, I can like do whatever. Like, do you need me to do the big voice thing? I can do that too. That's fine. Like, and I love that, and I felt like that's what lent an interesting bent to the story, because it's like, here is this particular aspect of it, but now you're approaching it with wonderful, on point, on the nose humor. And Talbot is reacting kind of like how I think like any guy would react in that situation. If growing up with like the idea of the Judeo-Christian God, you would have the same questions. You're like, but wait a second, man, are you supposed to be like, where's like the beard, dude? Like, where's all the cool stuff? And like, to not get that, you're like, so what? Like, kind of what's going on here? And I love the fact that God acknowledges that. Like, I know. I can do that if you want to.
It's fun to take the inner musings in my head and be able to pop them into the story and then have folks like you just enjoy them. So
yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Now, you said earlier that you were with a media company, and another question I have is just like, has the Zombie Fallout series been optioned? And if so, will we see it on the big screen or a television series?
Okay. Well, yeah, it was. I'm not sure the right coinage verbiage is optioned. It was with a development company called Illuminati, and then they had some transitions, and it kind of fell apart. So with a new company now, it's in development, and they're trying to push it for the small screen so we can have episodes, which would be phenomenal.
That would be so good.
Yeah, my gosh, I can't even imagine sitting down and watching Zombie Fall. Again, my head blowing off. But development is light years away from production. So
okay,
it's cool to say it's in development, but that doesn't mean much until it's in
Hollywood.
Production.
Yeah. I heard an episode with Brian Keene, and he gave like a whole explanation of that, of like with writers and like what it means when you're optioned and things like that. It's like it was very interesting, and like how they'll once that check clears, it's all good, but you may never necessarily get to see that work come to fruition.
No, yeah, I know it's a process.
Yeah, it's like massive. It's crazy. Like, and honestly, like I didn't know until like, I don't know if you listen to his podcast or not, but like until like hearing him as an author explain it to me as a layman, like, hey man, these are all the things that happen. Like, it's really hard for us. Like, so when you're out here and you're pressuring us, and we know that you mean well, but it's not fucking cool, okay? Like, we have a life, we have children, we have shit to do. So like you can't always like whip crap like
in terms of getting a story out.
Yeah, in terms of like, when's the next book? Like, what are you doing with this character? And sometimes he's just like, sometimes, you guys, I mean, like you said, you write so much that you just need a break. So have you ever taken like, long, big breaks from it, just from writing, just because it's been so draining on you? Or do you just kind of like sail through it?
Well, Brian Keene is he's huge, and he's very well established, and
yeah.
I'm sure he's doing very well for himself. Starving, but this is my career path, and I'm like the vast majority of the folks out there. I write. Well, I mean, paycheck to paycheck type of thing, and I write to eat. So
right.
So no, I have not, and it's a fear thing too. If I'm not relevant, if I don't have a story coming out, people just turn away. Then something else comes along, and yay, shiny shit. And
yeah.
So I always want to. I want to make sure they're still enjoying the stories, and that I'm still hey, this is coming out soon, and that's coming out soon, and we got this going on. So No, man, there's too much fear to just kind of, I'm going to take 2017 off,
Yeah.
Would it be cool? Sure, it'd be fucking fantastic. But I watched a friend take like 6-7 months off, and I'll tell you what, he's having a hell of a time jump starting it again. So it's just it's tough, and
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to a cube, man. That shit scares the living crap out of me, and
Yeah.
I don't know at this stage. I don't know if anybody wants to be sitting next to me, So
You know what? I'm all about not. I'm anti cubicle life. Like, I just feel like we should be able to, and we live in an age that we can, whatever we enjoy and whatever creative outlets we have, we can figure out a way to monetize it and live our lives doing that awesome stuff.
that that's the dream. I mean,
Right.
I work harder now than I ever did. I work stupid hours, but I love it.
Yeah.
I get to do this. I get to talk to people like you. I get to write during the day. I get to correspond with folks from all around the world, and it's a kick in the pants. And at no time in my life could I have ever imagined this.
Right.
I wasn't 22 like I'm gonna be a writer.
Yeah.
I never thought about it. I mean, this is a fairly recent development. I mean, I put out my first book in '09. I mean, it did nothing, and I never considered myself an author back then at any point. I mean, but it really wasn't until about 2011 that it started to be like, oh my gosh, maybe we can do this. By we, I mean my wife and I, because she does all the business aspect of it. But
Right.
so I mean, it's a 5 years really. So
Wow. So it's definitely growth. There's definitely, you can see. I mean, so now, because you said you started earlier, before, like, we had all the technology and we had all the things available to us. Now, how has that helped you? How has that changed in how literature is sold and how it's consumed? How, has that helped you? Obviously, I came across you through audiobooks. So right there, you can tell that's something that's unique onto itself.
well, I mean, Amazon and the great indie publishing, is like, holy crap. I mean, I told you that we would turn down from everybody, so this would have halted dead in its tracks back in '09 if we couldn't have just shoved a book up on Amazon for the hell of it.
Right.
So without that indie publishing, my career doesn't exist. And then audiobooks, which I thought was audiobooks. My earliest memories of audiobooks was my mom sitting in the kitchen with that crappy old cassette deck, listening to books on cassette. Sound like a guy in a fucking tin can, and I'm like,
Yep.
whatever, Ma, I'm going out and playing baseball. You listen to your crappy little book on the, and that to me was audiobook. So when the audiobook company Tanto, is the publisher of the first few Zombie Falls, when they came to me and, hey, we want to do audiobooks, I was like, whatever, take them. I never thought that was going to be a big deal. And in terms of sales now, audiobooks are actually a bigger chunk for me than ebook sales, which I never thought was going to happen.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that's great though. It's like, any way you can get it, man. That's absolutely awesome. Now you said something about, like, being thankful for indie publishing. Like, what are your thoughts? Recently, a couple of publishing houses have kind of, like, went under, different things like that. What are your thoughts on? Let me reframe that. Do you think that big publishing houses are still necessary?
Oh,
What's your opinion as
the real quick, I would say yes. The big publishing houses, what was hurting them was they're so big and they are so entrenched in the old school way of doing things that when the indies hit, first off, they probably were like, nah, whatever. What are they going to do to us? And then when Amazon changed the market and was like, and indies were crushing them, then they had to take notice. So so like all through 2012, I mean, indies were just beating the crap out of. Because I remember when my wife first got a Kindle, and this is before I was really even writing. That she got a Kindle, and she was going to get a book. I don't know, by Gabaldon or Anne Rice. I don't know, whatever. And we're looking at getting ebooks, and it's like, why is an ebook $14.99? Why? It's not produced. It's not sitting on a shelf. There's no paper involved. There's no transportation. Why isn't there a break? So then all these indies come in, and we're sitting there at $2.99 and $3.99 and $4.99. So that's why folks were giving us a chance. So they're sitting there on their Kindle. Maybe they got a $10 gift card for their birthday. Do I spend $15 on the new Stephen King, or do I give this guy Mark Tufo a go at $2.99? Screw it. I'm going to try the $2.99 kid. And maybe they like me, maybe they don't. And then, so that was all up through 2012. That right up to the end of their indie gravy time. I mean, just a wonderful time to be an indie. And then the big six kind of figured out, we're getting our ass handed to us. So they said, let's readjust these prices. And so, like, right around 2013, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to go back and get a job, because now Stephen King is $4.99, and Mark Tufo's $3.99. Who am I gonna get? I'm gonna get Stephen King. So it's like, and that was a huge hit. I mean, we just watched sales just to plummet. And so that was a scary time, but everything kind of evened out and adjusted, and we're still popping along.
Yeah, man.
But the big six still have huge distribution channels, and they have reach, and they have definitely changed their business models. And but yeah, I mean, I still think they're relevant and they're valid, and they can be a great way for some folks to get discovered, and things like that.
Right. I don't know, like, because I'm not a writer. I'm just a consumer of literature, horror and otherwise. And I've always kind of like, after like listening to Keen kind of discuss it and have those kind of conversations, and having my podcast and just like doing all these things myself, sometimes like I wonder, and I've had that that question like rattle at me, like, hey man, like I wonder if are publishing houses really necessary? Because I didn't really think about it until he was having this discussion on his show, and I was just like, wow, publishing houses still do exist. And I definitely see your point as well too. Like, there's a reach, but I'm also, because I like, put it like this, I went to mail something today, and I felt lost going into the post office because I haven't mailed a physical package in years.
Yeah. I mean, the technology has definitely, I mean, the digital age, we are definitely in the midst of it. And, I mean, the medium is just transported, on the internet for sure, and, I mean, my dream was, once I started this, was like, I want to have my books in a bookstore, and try to find a bookstore, I mean, you got to travel like halfway across a city to find one,
Apparently, I hear Amazon are going to start creating real life bookstores.
Yeah, which is, you almost sit there and wonder why. But so I mean that right there kind of shows you that there's still some validity to the big six.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's big five now. I think one got bought up. I don't know. But and then being an author, I guess, we have self-esteem issues, but there's that validation that those big publishers offer you, like, they really love me kind of thing. And I wish I wasn't that person. Fair. I don't want to be that person, but if the big six came calling, big five, whatever, and I'd have to pause and look, but they've really changed their business model. They don't offer the advances, the huge advances like they used to. They don't do the advertising like they used to. So it's like, well, if you're not going to give me any money and you're not going to give me any push, then what do I need you for?
Exactly. So, I'm just going to go ahead and do this social media thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe they start rethinking some of the things they do and don't. But, yeah, I mean, their influence has declined for sure. But I don't know that they're nil yet.
That's very, very interesting. I'm excited to see where it goes in the next couple of years. Now, staying on terms of like companies and corporations and things like that. Obviously we're both horror fans, you and I. And every time I just, last time I had my buddy Brian Killian on the show, who wrote an excellent book. You should check it out. It's called Welcome to Necropolis. I don't know if you've ever read it, but
I think I have that in my to be read pile.
yeah, that's my buddy, and that book is absolutely awesome. And
Fantastic.
That's why I was like naming him like, oh, you guys are like up there for me in terms of like contemporary horror novelists right now. What are your thoughts on the current state of horror, both on screen and literature?
It's funny. A lot of people don't believe this. I don't watch much horror. I don't know why, man. It affects me. Like I like the movies, the stupid movies where just shit blows up all the time. I enjoy that, like the Die Hards, those kind of.
Of course, man. Like you're a jarhead. Of course you like shit that blows up. And then you complain about how all that stuff is fake and how guns don't do that and how you just like do
exactly.
that. Watching movies with my brother is the worst thing in the world, man. Like you Marines, like you guys are the worst. It's like, yeah, it doesn't happen like that. He's always like,
the Jason Bourne flicks, I dig those, or Deadpool, the superhero. Those are true horror, dude. I never watched the really scary ghost one. I don't really watch horror because I don't enjoy it. I don't like watching anything that's gonna make me lose sleep. I like my sleep. They are doing good things with the horror though, and I do enjoy reading it because Stephen King being my first thing into it. It's just as long as they don't keep doing the same thing over and over again because they know one will make a nickel, they'll just keep rolling it over.
Right.
Yeah, that's my slant for the 2.5 cents it's worth.
You know what? That's fair enough. Like because at first, like when you started saying that, I thought it was going to be from more of an aspect of like you don't want to be influenced and kind of like then you might start introducing ideas or characters that you didn't realize that you kind of like got from like looking at a show or something like that. But I get it, and it doesn't really matter because you write awesome stuff. So it's just like, who really cares? Now, in terms of literature, what are your thoughts on that? Are you?
I read. I'm actually. You'll be like, what is this dude's freaking problem? Unfortunately, like I was a very avid reader. I was constantly had a book. I mean, if I could have pulled it away, if I could have read a book while I was on my work commute, I would have done it. I find that write, and then edit and rewrite and beta reads and rewrites and like one of the last things I want to do is read, and that, oh dude, it bums me out to no end that I am not reading like I do. But when I do read, oh my gosh, I'm gonna sound bad. It's not horror. I love YA. I just love it because it's fast, it's enjoyable, it's a good read.
Young adult.
Dude, yeah, man. So I read young adult and I watch fairy tale movies apparently. So
I said that was the biggest question mark ever. I wish you could have seen my face. I was still like, wait, why young adult? Like
pathetic, man. But I enjoy it and it's quick and I don't know. That's what I use as my escapism.
You know what? No, that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's why I'm asking these questions because that's interesting, and I don't want you to lie. And I appreciate, you being honest to be like, well, no, I don't want to read that because I kind of want to get away from it. And I'll tell you because like I love fantasy movies and things like that, and I love horror movies, and like I watch them all the time. And obviously, our perspective on those things are different. Because sometimes like, and like, dude, sometimes I've recorded shows and people are gonna laugh and like, you're terrible, right? And I've waited sometimes so long to edit them because I don't want to sit down and listen to myself talk again for 2 hours. Like I really just like point by. So I totally get it. Or sometimes like, you know, like, and since starting my own podcast, very rarely, like the only podcast I really listen to like that is like, it's like literally a handful, Brian Keene's show being one of them. And that's because it's not like what I do. It's not, you know, majority video games and like, you know, different things like that. It's horror, but it's horror from a very different aspect. It's horror from a place that I don't necessarily know about, you know, which is like giving you the background on like writing and then like the horror community stuff that I'm not, you know, generally aware of and things like that. So that's what makes it more interesting for me. But like, I definitely get you, because right now, if you ask me when's the last time I listened to like something gaming related, I'm like, dude, I really don't. Because
dude, I have a hard time. Well, because like when I read my books, it's work. Like I'm doing work when I'm reading, you know. So now I don't know if I'm associating work with reading, you know. So like picking up a book is quite as entertaining for me as it used to be. So I don't know, you know. Sometimes I just stick on junk damn TV, or I grab a YA.
You know what? I think I understand it. It's because it's like, I think it's on a few reasons. Number one, because you're a writer and you're a creator, you don't want any of that to kind of bleed in to your work, which can happen. Because I know comedians talk about that often. Some comedians don't like to watch other comedians.
But you know, everything is an influence. You know, I mean, every time you walk down the street or you interact with somebody or you see something, you read something, you watch something, that all becomes part of who you are. So every piece of that's going to get disassembled and reassembled back on the page in some form or another.
Right. True. Fair enough. Yeah, man. Listen, you know what? It's fine. Like anytime I see a young adult novel on sale at any,
you send it to me, brother.
I'll send it to you. Because like I'm in California and we have tons of garage sales all the time, like every weekend out here. Anytime I see a young adult novel, I'll pick one up and I'll shoot it right over to you, buddy. Don't worry, I got you, man.
Thanks, man. I'm not talking a C-spot run. That's about as high as I go.
Oh man. So I'm guessing my next question was kind of answered a little bit earlier in the show when you were talking, when you said your first, but maybe not. Your first book was Stephen King's It. So my next question is, what are your favorite horror flicks, but you don't watch that? And or book, but we got the book your favorite, which was like, you know, It from back in the day, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on Stephen King, Dean Koontz. I don't know if you quantify or qualify Dean Koontz's horror. I mean, I love his stuff. Yeah, I mean,
Dean Koontz is like thriller, isn't it? Is it like more like dark thriller?
Yeah,
dark thriller, I guess. Yeah.
You know, what was it? Night of the Living Dead. I was 7 when my cousin was babysitting, and for some friggin' reason, he thought Night of the Living Dead was gonna be a good story to put a 7-year-old to bed with, and yeah, and I watched that, and I mean, that was the very first time I'd ever seen anything even remotely like that. You know, I was watching, you know, Captain Kangaroo and shit, or whatever the hell I was watching.
Oh my God, Captain Kangaroo, that's hilarious.
I know, right?
Like Benny Hill or something.
Without the boobs.
Yeah, right.
So I'm watching that show, and I was terrified and enthralled all at the same time. Like it felt cool to be that scared, you know, and I think that was the love of horror for me in the film genre and of obviously zombies, you know, and so that kind of, I guess, got emblazoned onto my skull way back when.
Man, that's not a, you know what, like Stephen King, and I always say, and I know some people are probably like, oh my gosh, like he doesn't really, you know, like, you know, watch this stuff outside of it. And I think this is great. And I think that, and the reason why is because I feel like, so a lot of us sometimes are pressured into things that we don't necessarily enjoy, even though we have a really good, you know, we're really good at it. Like, so like the fact that you're sitting here like an artist or something, you know, they're like, you know what, I'm really good at painting trees. Whenever I do a picture, you know, whenever I paint a tree, like it just sells. Or like I'm a photographer, but my money comes from taking wedding photos. I hate taking wedding photos. And I feel like someone would be like, oh, that's horrible. But it's like, no, not really. Like, if you kind of enjoy this thing and this is your outlet of where you can do it and you can make money from it, why not? Like, you don't necessarily have to like it all the time, 365 days a year, and and every aspect of your life, I feel like. And I'm accustomed to those purists, you know, where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm horror is all throughout my life. Like, you know, I listen to the Misfits when I wake up in the morning. You know, I watch Hammer films when I go to sleep at night, that kind of thing. And it's just kind of like,
no, you know, I used to do a podcast, and we had some just super smart authors on there. I mean, just very intellectual and educated. And I've never considered myself super sophisticated, super educated. Back to when we started this interview, I'm an average Joe. You know,
that's that Boston self-loathing, man, folks. all everyone who's listening to me right now, if you don't know anything about Boston culture, this is it right here, right now. My favorite comedian is Bill Burr, and he does the same thing. He's like, you know, yeah, like, you know, what am I? You know, fucking balding redhead. Like, what the fuck do I know? You know,
you know, I'm just a storyteller, and I don't, you know, I don't want to come across as anything more than that, you know, and just start throwing out these huge words that I don't even understand, you know.
Yeah, you know, these $20 words. No, and I definitely appreciate that, and it doesn't matter, because I feel like what you set out to do and what you set out to accomplish, you accomplish it very well. With every iteration of the series that I've seen, it's done well, because you know what, and I'll give you and I'll go on and say one better, because these same people who, you know, you're lauding as like, oh, they're super educated, like, they should know better, and a lot of them, they write pure shit sometimes. So if a working class guy from Boston can create an awesome zombie story and create it with characters, both women and characters of color, without any hint of like stereotype or caricatures, and it's just a character, and I mean, that's a person that should be respected, and that's how I view your work. So, you know, it's all good for those people and their $20 words, but
yeah, I can't afford those words.
You know, your stuff is good. Two questions. I wanted to kind of go back, because we talked about this earlier before we closed out, because this is very important for me, and I noticed it as you were talking earlier, talking about, you know, you grew up in a house where, you know, reading was the thing. You said your dad and your brother, you know, you consumed a lot of books all the time. You guys are interchanging these books. So I kind of want to jump all the way back a little bit and kind of talk to us a little bit about your earliest influences in terms of literature.
Well, I lived at the library. We grew up. I'm not going to poor. We weren't dirt poor, but we did not have a lot of extra discretionary income at our house.
Yeah. Working class family. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the library. When I wanted to read, my mom dragged me to the library all the time, which was fantastic. And when I was very young, I read. I got into. When I got a little older, got into the sci-fi, and there was this gentleman, John Christopher. He's got some incredible books out, and I just I think he passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately, but he had some great stuff that if you ever have a chance, check that out.
John Christopher, okay, I'll write that.
Yeah, definitely a big influence for me back in the day.
Oh, was there anyone else? Was it King as well too? And what style? Because I've never heard of Christopher. So what style of writing was he? In a particular genre?
He's a sci-fi genre.
Okay. Oh, so see, I'll definitely check him out.
He's got some post-apocalyptic stuff too. As a matter of fact, before it was hot. You know, I'd love to throw out like 400 names. I don't. I read constantly and all the time. I just, you know, I don't have the names for you.
Yeah, no, I know how it is, man, dude. That happens to me all the time. I'll be standing right next to someone, and I'll just say something, and then I'm like, dude, What was I talking about? Like,
Yeah. I've done that a couple times this interview. I was like, what was the question he asked?
it's like, wait, what was that? So we went through, the inception of the Fallout series. I've learned that there's a whole lot more work out there that I need to kind of get into, like in Fallout, Indian Hill. What are some of the other titles you got out there?
I've got the Like and Fall, Indian Hill. There's the Timothy series for those into darker stuff. It is very graphic horror. So yeah, if you're not into that thing, I don't recommend it. I got a supernatural. I actually got two of them: paranormal, supernatural. One is Callous Rose, the other is Spirit Clearing. I actually, because of my love of YA, I wrote a YA book. It's called Distance: Winter's Rising. It's the first book in a 3-book series. Then I did a couple other series with another author. It's the A Shrouded World series I wrote with John O'Brien.
Okay.
Yeah, then I got the Book of Riley, which is it's a zombie tale through the eyes of an American bulldog.
Yes,
so that's a whole series.
Yes, I saw that one too. That's the one I saw. Yes, I saw that one as well. Yeah, Book of Riley. That's really interesting, man. That's really interesting. Now, tell us a little bit. Give us what you can give us without spoiling too much about the Like and Fallout. Because that sounds really interesting to me, and I love werewolves, so that sounds like
this you might want to. Well,
warning?
shoot, man. Yeah, well, it's for you too, man. I'd hate to. Something happens in the Zombie Fallout series where a character will be able to move on, and that character will pick up the vein in the Like and Fallout series. So the zombies have done what they're going to do. They've had their heyday. They've had their run. Man is on the process of rebuilding in this new world, and all of a sudden there is this uprising of Lycan to once again kind of just screw him over. But
oh man.
Yeah,
okay.
It was.
You know what? You're right. Because if it's connected, I'm definitely excited about that because I would like to know that.
It's connected. Yeah. It's funny because the whole genesis of just even writing that one. My wife and I were going to get coffee one day, and she's like, werewolves are really big right now. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm writing zombie books. She's like, no, werewolves are really big right now, and I'm like, whatever, okay, good for werewolves. What do you want me to do about it? So that was so now I'm writing a werewolf series. So
pretty much the boss said to write werewolves, and now you're writing werewolves.
Right. The boss says you're writing werewolves. I'm writing werewolves.
That absolutely makes sense. Now, final question I have for you: what advice, if any, would you give to upcoming writers, especially those that have chosen the same genre that you've chosen?
It is not an easy field. Be prepared to be criticized. Don't give up. You have no idea how many people I've seen just come and go. It's strange. A lot of folks think that, oh, I wrote a book. I'm going to be J.K. Rowling rich now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I always mess her name up.
Yeah,
and
J.K. Rowling.
That's not the case. Maybe one in a. So everyone hits the lottery, right? Somebody hits the lottery every time, but for the vast, vast majority of us, that's not going to be the case. If you are going to write a book, I suggest somehow scraping the pennies together and get an edit for it. The best you can afford. Make sure you put out a product you're happy with and you're proud of. And unfortunately, we all say don't judge a book by a cover, but I do it and I sell books. So you'd think I'd know better. If the cover doesn't attract me, then I'm probably not going to pick the book up, unfortunately. Right. So invest in a professional cover. And then you just got to keep working at your craft. It's not a one and done, for right or wrong. I think you got to keep writing. The more books you have out, the more exposure you're going to get.
Right.
but there is, you know, everybody. You have no idea how many people like. What's the secret? And I was like, there's no secret, man. I'm not hiding a magic bullet. You know, that I'm not telling you what to do. I mean, you know, I'd love. This is what you do, and you're gonna make $1 bazillion. Hey, I would have made $1 bazillion by now if I had that magic pill or the secret.
Yeah,
but,
the elixir, as they used to say back in the Old West.
It's like, honest to God.
Step right up. I have the magic elixir.
Yeah, it's honest to God, just hard work. That's what it is. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I work 80, 90 hours a week, easy, every freaking week. I try to take weekends off. It doesn't work too much. And that's what it is. If that's the secret, then that's what it is. It's just busting your ass. If you want to succeed at this, you got to work.
Fair enough. I love that. I think that's excellent advice. And we are going to end it on that note. Mark, it's been awesome talking to you, man. It was so great having you on the show. Thank you for coming through. But before we go, I would like for you to give everyone your social media information. Let them know where they can buy your books, where they can hit you on Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff.
You can go to on Twitter. I don't even know the address. It's marktufo.com. You can find me there. I do have a blog spot, which I don't make enough use of. I am all over Facebook. You would have a hard time missing me there if you just type in Mark Tufo on Facebook. If you want to buy my stuff, it's on Amazon. You just Mark Tufo onto Amazon, and bloop, you know, all the stuff will pull up. A little bit on Barnes and Noble. I have no idea my Twitter account, man.
No, don't worry. You know what? That's going to go in the show notes. As a matter of fact, folks, give us 1 second, and I'm going to pull that up for you right now, and I'm going to say it on the show. Yeah, because I always keep my phone handy just in case I forget things too. So don't feel bad, man. I do this on purpose. It's at Zombie Fallout.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All one word, and you'll see it. Mark Tufo has the books. It has what's the dog from the Zombie Fallout series, the bulldog.
Henry.
Yeah, on the cover. So like it's all right there. See, boom.
Always. And if anybody, there are a lot of folks that stare away from, for whatever reason, social media. I get it. If you ever want to reach out and contact me on email, it's mark_tufo@yahoo.com. And you know, whether you reach out to me on Facebook, Twitter, email, I do try to get back to you within 24 hours. It's not always the case, but if I get your message, I will respond.
Awesome. And as always, folks, I've been your humble host, Milton. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Mark, once again for coming on. It's so awesome, and I've been so excited. And I can't tell you how nervous I was to have you on the show, because I'm like, oh man, it's going to be great talking to this guy. It's so awesome. And indeed, it was great. Indeed, it was awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And hopefully I can do more horror episodes, man. I truly enjoy talking about it, whether it's movies or literature. And once again, Mark, thanks for coming on. All right, folks, we're out of here.
Rise from your grave.